What a thriller. What a game. Giants fall to the Cowboys 40-37 in overtime. Thought that they had the game there. There's a lot to unpack from this one. Brandon London with Jared Schwartz. Jared, I'm out right now at 902 Brewery in Jersey City, watching with a lot of Giants fans. We thought that Giants fans, all the hype, all the expectations, they thought we had it, and then they just gave it away at the end. Obviously, there's so much to break down from this game, from the penalties to James Hudson, whatever he was doing. Malik Neighbors, ice in his veins, showed up. Russell Wilson was having a heck of a game until the very last, two throws. I guess let's just start off with you, man. Just go ahead and I'll feed off you, man. Like, watching the game, what were your emotions like?
I mean, you come down to the end of the game and you say, just get into field goal range and kick the field goal and get away with the win and jumpstart your season here. And over and over, it's going through your head. Losers lose. Losing teams find ways to lose. And this is a team that's lost a lot of games in recent years. And a lot of players on this team have lost a lot of games in recent years. And for as good as it was, they found a way to lose. And for most of the game, it was the defense that couldn't get a stop there in the fourth quarter. And Russ kept bailing him out. And some pretty tremendous deep balls and tremendous touchdown throws. Then, of course, in overtime, the defense gets 2 stops and gives Russ 2 chances to get that field goal. And like you said, one of the best games we've seen Russ play probably since he was in Seattle. One awful throw. It seemed like there was a miscommunication between him and Malik Neighbors there. Malik was running towards the sideline. He kind of threw it down the field into double coverage. And just like that, it's a loss. And, the margins in the NFL are so thin. The margins between winning and losing are so thin. And you can do so many good things, but they also did too many bad things. Like you said, the penalties. I mean, 14 for 160, and there's more that were either, declined or offsetting. And that makes a difference. You left 4 points on the board probably in the first quarter when they completed that pass to Wan'Dale Robinson. They get to the 2-yard line. James Hudson's personal foul brings them back. That turns a potential touchdown, into a field goal. That's 4 points. Drew Phillips, his personal foul penalty, that gave the Cowboys another first down. That let them score a touchdown when they probably would have had to settle for a field goal. That's 4 points. That's 8 points right there. Brian Daboll's decision to kick the field goal in the third quarter, I believe. His decision to go for it on fourth down rather than to take the field goal and the incomplete pass to Cam Scatterbo. That's 3 points they could have gotten. That 3 points would have made the difference in regulation. So, that's almost 11 points right there that off the top of my head, that they left on the field. And they're not good enough to make up for those margins of error right now.
Yeah, as a player, you're going to watch the tape and you're going to look at it. There are some things that you're going to be encouraged about. Obviously, Russell Wilson, 30 for 41, 460 yards, three touchdowns, and 1 INT is obviously that one he wants back. But just speaking from a player's perspective, this one hurts. I think this one's going to hurt them more than it hurt watching the Washington tape, because you saw what you are or what you could be, what this season could be like. You can go toe-to-toe with an offense like the Cowboys with a CeeDee Lamb and a George Pickens and a Dak Prescott. You can score points. Defensively, we saw Brian Burns show up. Elijah Garcia had a huge sack at the end. I thought Kayvon had a hell of a game as well. So you saw so many good things that you put on tape, but there's absolutely no participation trophies in the NFL. It's a wins and loss league, and you're going to be sick to your stomach when you watch some of this stuff, the hidden yardage, the hidden the points. I just remember my rookie year, Tom Coughlin used to always talk about the hidden yardage, whether it be through penalties or not taking advantage of certain opportunities. And there was a part of this game where I was watching where it was like, more of the same when it came to the Giants. And then it shifted to, who are these guys? Like, what offense is this? Where do we see? I mean, where did this come from? And then it kind of shifted toward the end where it was a couple missed tackles here and there, loose coverage being played in some situations where you feel as though, maybe you want to press the receivers because you're rushing 4. Let's press the receivers and just not give up. Dink and duck. because you're talking about a field goal kicker that feels like he can kick it from here in Jersey City to make it, all the way down in Dallas. So you're gonna watch that tape. And you hope that it's a tape that you kind of try and band together and come together. And as players, you realize, hey, we can't give up all these penalties. And you saw Malik Neighbors and those guys going after kind of James Hudson on the sideline. I would like to know what that conversation was exactly, because when you're looking at it, you're like, as a player, I'm jumping down your throat for that.
I mean,
because this is something that we talked about all week about cleaning up, and then that stalled a drive. Keep going.
Yeah, I mean, you've been around football your entire life. I've watched a lot of football. Have you ever seen one drive where one player was so detrimental to his team? I mean, I really can't recall one worse drive from an individual player. I mean, he gets beat for a sack on one play, and 4 straight penalties. Just a bizarre personal foul where he tried to smack, the pass rusher in the head, a false start, another personal foul, and a false start. And it was almost comical at one point. I mean, 4 straight penalties. I don't think I've ever seen that from one player. I believe they said on the broadcast that hasn't happened this century. And look, we know without Andrew Thomas, left tackle was a potential problem. They signed James Hudson in free agency. He was someone that they said, if Andrew Thomas can't play, and they knew that there was a decent chance he might not be able to play, coming from that foot injury. They signed James Hudson thinking he'd be good enough to fill in for 1 week, 2 weeks, and it's clear he's not, because once Marcus Bowe came in, the line looked pretty good. Russell Wilson had time to throw, especially late in the game. Did you even hear Marcus Bowe's name called, once after he went in the game?
No.
So that's one thing I think is clearly James Hudson was a mistake, because not only is he just not that good, I mean, those penalties are just – that was at least 4 points on the table on that drive. I mean, it was like I think they gained 110 yards on that drive, but Hudson accounted for -40 on penalties himself. That's inexcusable. They liked him because he was, he kind of played with an edge and he was physical and stuff, but there's a big line between playing with an edge and just committing stupid penalties that killed your team. And that probably left 4 points on the board, and it's a game that they lost by 3. So it's unacceptable. We'll see if Andrew Thomas will be back this week, but if he's not, I would definitely go back to Marcus Bowe, because he seemed like he was pretty solid there. But like you said, the hitting yardage, those little plays. Bruce Phillips had kind of an up and down day, but he had a killer penalty. There was just too many mental mistakes. How many pass interferences that just let the Cowboys get right into their territory? And like you said, when you're going up against a kicker, he's probably the best, long-range kicker in the league, that hitting yardage is so critical, because he does not need to get very far down the field for him to be in range. So, it's there's so much good, but there's so much good on that tape. But when they watch it back, there's also so much bad on that tape.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate, because a lot of the Cowboys scoring drives were propelled through penalties. It's unfortunate situations where you're getting it. I think this is something we're going to see throughout the course of this year, having a pass rush like that, where all of those guys are getting after Dak Prescott. It's almost like you don't want to. It's almost like you don't want to try and sack him, because you're going to get called for some sort of roughing the passer. Bobby Okereke has his hands up and he's comes down on Dak Prescott, hits him in the head. That's not an intentional play. That's just a football play. It doesn't matter. 15-yard penalty. Same thing with I think it was either 94.
It was Roy Robertson Harris, I believe.
Roy Robertson Harris. Like, even Dean Statutor, or whatever that guy's name, even he said that shouldn't have been a penalty. So I know this is a little bit off topic. I think roughing the passer should definitely be reviewable. I think we should be able to review that, because it's so subjective. The ref in real time may not see something, but under the hood, when you're watching it, it could be like, okay, well, maybe he did come down on him, but like Gene said, he rotated to the side. So pick that flag up, because that is absolutely detrimental to a drive. getting off the field. When we talk about Drew Phillips, Paulson Adebo, some of the penalties that they had, you're getting your head back, which is great, what you're supposed to do.
But then
But
they're
you got to
grabbing.
let go of
Then
the
they're
arm,
grabbing.
let go of the arm. So it was just one thing after another where you're watching this game and you're like, Giants, just put this thing to bed. Like, put it away. And they couldn't do that. So again, Jared, I am a firm believer that watching this tape is going to hurt them and make them feel even more sick than what they did watching the Commanders game.
And
Because
they made it so easy for the Cowboys, down those last couple offensive drives. They made it so easy, putting them in field goal position. That one right, the game time field goal, right as regulation ended. They forced an incomplete pass. Okay, second down, which Dexter Lawrence could have intercepted. That ball. That's a tough play. It's a tough play, but it was in his hands. Second play, 18 yards to a wide open Jake Ferguson right down the seam. That's too easy. It's too easy. The defense was too deep. They got to know they're going up against a kicker that can hit it from 65, 64. And, it was just a simple pitch and catch, 18 yards, and they're already in field goal position. One more run, and they're in Aubrey's range. And it was too easy. That last touchdown from Russ to Malik Neighbors should have won the game. You run that thing 100 times, you should, after that touchdown, you should win like 90, 95 of them. And it was too easy. And this is a defense that just seems like it's whenever the Cowboys knew what they needed, they got it. They knew they needed to get to the 50-yard line, they got it. In overtime, they know they needed to get to the same spot, they got it. And it was too easy. I think you can sort of question Shane Bowen, some of Shane Bowen's calls. It seemed like it was very passive on that drive, right before regulation ended. And the one thing is they did not get a lot of pass rush on Dak the last couple drives in the fourth quarter.
I noticed that.
Thibodeau did have a big sack, but other than that, he was pretty comfortable back there and just. You give CeeDee Lamb enough time, he's gonna beat Paulson Adebo, or you give George Pickens enough time, he'll get open, and that's just what we saw. That what their strength is supposed to be with pass rush and obvious passing downs, where the Cowboys, who know they're passing, they didn't get there, and Dak was really comfortable, and Dak is good, and he hurt them.
Absolutely hurts them. Again, I'm just trying to take it all in. Like, one, the high of the thrill of what we just watched, and then two, just the letdown because, again, like you said, when Malik Neighbors scored that touchdown, I thought it was over. I was ready to text the group chat like, "Let's go live right now. This thing is over." But there was some Cowboys fans that were just like, just wait, because talking about the kicker. Everyone knew the kicker that you're going up against and what his leg power was like. And yes, I thought they were playing a little bit too conservative and being playing too far off. And yeah, man, it's just as a fan, as a media, as a former player, you're watching it and you're just absolutely sick to your stomach. And you can only imagine what that plane ride is going to be like on the way back because Cordell Flott, I thought, played a heck of a game. I think he is that starting corner too.
Yeah.
He locked that spot down. I thought Tay Banks was physical when it came to the run game at times, but I think Cordell Flott kind of took that game. But you talk about if you're Brian Burns, if you're Cordell Flott, if you're Drew Phillips, who Drew had a pretty solid game, you don't even feel good about what you put on tape. It's the NFL. You're going to get beat. You're going to get blocked. Guys are going to catch balls on you. But when you've made some plays in a game against a team like the Cowboys, in a game where it's not a must win, but you really needed that win there, you can't even feel good about some of the stuff you put on tape because of how sick to the stomach you are going to be about from this loss. So there should be a players-only meeting called. And I know it's week 2. I know as media, if that was to get out, it'd be like, oh my gosh, they're panicking. It's a players-only media. No, if you wear a C on your chest on that team and you were part of that 3-14 team, or you've been a part of some of the bad Giants teams in the past, you call that players only meeting, and
The-
you get up in guys' faces, and not to create any sort of dissension or anything, but it's an accountability thing because, like you said, this team is good, but when you compare it to some of the stronger rosters in the NFL, you're not good enough to play both the Cowboys and the Commanders and the Giants at the same time.
And there has to be some message about that accountability and the discipline issues, because it's just unacceptable. And there's some comments in the chat now. They're obviously saying that they're a poorly coached team. Does this show that they're a poorly coached team? Does these discipline issues, is that an indictment of Brian Daboll's coaching? James Hudson has kind of been this guy his whole career. He toes the line. He's really physical, and he does some dumb things. Is that on Daboll? I think some of this the pass interference is coaching. That, like you said, they're getting their heads around, but they got to get their hands off the receiver. That's coaching. That's technique. Some of the false starts, is that they're not sharp enough. They're not where they're supposed to be. But also, the personal fouls. You could say it's coaching, but it's also just some of them were borderline, like you said. The one with Okereke, the one with Roy Robertson Harris, where he kind of just he hits him too high. I don't know. I mean, I don't think you can say it's not coaching, because discipline is part of coaching. And I did think it was interesting on that first drive. James Hudson, commits penalty, and Daboll, he came over to the sideline and Daboll said something to him, then he left him in. And then he committed another penalty, and then Daboll said, "All right, take him out." And on the next drive, it was Marcus Bowe. So he did give him a little bit of a leash. He gave him he committed a couple of penalties. He spoke to him, but he put him back in, and then he commits another penalty. Then he puts Bowe in, and after Hudson was taken out, there was you could see on the broadcast he was pretty upset. He was kind of yelling on the sidelines, and you could see O-line coach Carm Brasilla was trying to calm him down. That's coaching. It's not just Daboll. It's the position coaches. It's Carm Brasilla, trying to get through to his player, not to make back-breaking plays.
It's as a son of a football coach, it's a mixture of both. But you can't put some of those PI penalties. I don't think you can put that on coaching, because you go over this, like you rep this stuff. You go throughout the course of training camps and practices. That's why you have reps there to tell guys, like, hey, you can't get hands on and all. This is something that has been like those type of penalties. Those are stuff that has been addressed, or you brought that up to this team. This is the NFL. Now, when we talk about coaching, is this something that's situational awareness, or maybe they didn't go over? That I put that more on the coaching. But the James Hudson, that's the player. It's the execution aspect of the game. And the thing about football, it's like chess with live players. You can put, like, just think of that fourth down, they went for it. Russell Wilson throws it a little bit low to Cam Scatterbull.
Yeah.
He hits him right in the hands. So you could say that was a good play call, because you put the pawn or the rook in position to make a play. Now that chess piece has to make that play. So a lot of the times when when we have talking points like that, it's just media talking point, and not so much in terms of when you're in the locker room and you're in these meeting rooms. It's not a thing where guys are looking at, like, Malik Neighbors is going to be like, hey, Dave, that's coaching that Drew Phillips had that pass interference, because I'm sure they went over that, and it's like, guys, you got to let go at that point. Play the ball. They did a great job getting their eyes back. Now it's don't grab, go for the pick. They had a couple interceptions that kind of went off their hands this game, and I know they're going to be sick off that, not just the Dexter Lawrence one, but there was a couple that they got hands on that they're going to want. So, again, there's so many things you can point to throughout the course of this game, and you can use this to try and galvanize the team. But at the same time, man, losses like this, when you've lost games like this before, what were they, 1-8 when it came to one possession games last year? You're looking at it, half of it is like, okay, that's encouraging. The other half is like, More the same.
And you can try to galvanize off of it, but at the end of the day, the only thing that matters is 0-2. They're 0-2, and they got the Chiefs coming in. So then they got one of the hardest teams in the league coming in next week. 0-2 is 0-2. You score 37 points or you score 6 like last week. It doesn't matter. It's a
Yeah,
loss.
yeah,
And
yeah.
for all the optimism that there was over the offseason, the good vibes, the aura and stuff like that, it's 0-2, and 0-2 is 0-2, and
Yeah.
0-2 with a short week and a really tough opponent coming in, which could easily turn into 0-3. And for me, obviously, I think the main story of the game was the penalties and the discipline. But I think what was most disappointing was the defense, because you remember, John Mara after last season said he's sick of seeing teams run up and down the field on the Giants defense last year. That's where they invested all their money this offseason. Maybe not in the draft, but they bring in Paulson Adebo. They bring in Javon Holland. They draft Abdul.
Bullshit.
They
Yeah.
they invested a lot in that defense, and it laid an egg today. When they needed one or two stops to seal the game, they laid an egg. I thought Adebo struggled against CeeDee Lamb. Lamb was quiet for most of the game, but then, of course, at the end of the game, it was like pitch and catch with Dak Prescott. It was a comfortable drop back, 1, 2, 3 seconds to bounce around, and Lamb was just open, almost every single time. I thought you could tell the loss of Micah McFadden. I thought that was, evident. I think Darius Uasau lost a guy a couple times,
Come up here.
in the middle
Come
of
see
the
what that does. Come see what that does.
the run game the run stopping was maybe a little bit better than last week, but at the same time, Javonte Williams had a couple runs
Yeah.
where they had him stopped, and then all of a sudden he breaks free. Especially on that touchdown, Deonte Banks. If you look back at the tape, Deonte Banks last year, his effort on tackling was a big reason why he was benched at one time, and why the coaches were on him. You watch back that Javonte Williams touchdown, his effort was pretty lacking. He was in the scrum, but not physical enough, and Javonte Williams just, comes through and runs pretty much untouched after that into the end zone. So, all that money was invested in the defense, and time after time when they had chances to make a play, they didn't. Especially on that drive right before the end of regulation, where Jake Ferguson, that 18-yard pass to Jake Ferguson, it's too easy. It came right in the middle of the defense. They had chances to get to Dak Prescott and make him uncomfortable. The pass rush kind of, went missing at the end of the game. And back to coaching, I think you can look at some of Shane Bowen's defensive calls at the end of the game. Too passive, too much zone, too just not, playing almost not to lose rather than to win. And, you give Dak Prescott time, he's going to make a play. You give CeeDee Lamb enough time to find a spot in that zone, he's going to make a play. Even Jake Ferguson on that catch, right before regulation, it was simple. He just ran, 15 yards straight, turned around and caught it, and then fell backwards for a couple extra yards. So, a lot of disappointment because there were so many plays that were just left right out there.
The Giants fall to the Cowboys 40-37, overtime thriller. You got the Kansas City Chiefs coming in, Sunday night football, prime time football. Don't want to go 0-3, especially with the rest of the schedule that they have in front of them. They got a gauntlet. Thanks for watching Blue Games post-game show. Jared Schwartz, I'm Brandon London. Jared, I wish I had a little bit more enthusiasm, man, but it took a lot out, bro. It took a lot out of me. I'm not even gonna lie. I was just riding a complete high. I was ready to jump on here with you and start talking some trash to some Cowboys fans in the background. Now I gotta kind of tuck my head between my legs and just grab my kid and get in the Uber and get up out of here. So thanks for rocking with us on this post-game live show for the New York Post. This is Blue Rush.